It is the Pete Souza Show, and he is Tanner Carlson, host of All In Horns, high school broadcaster extraordinaire to throw in there. Thank you so much, by the way, Tanner, for taking some time this morning. I know you got a busy schedule.
Oh, no, man. Thanks for having me. And when it comes to talking Texas Longhorn sports, I always kind of block off a little 30-minute period in my day, no matter who it is, to get some good conversation going.
Well, there's plenty to conversate about. Sean Miller named the head coach of the Longhorns. It happened fast. I want to talk about present day, but let's go backwards. Can you tell us a little bit about how this developed and his name emerged to the top of the heap?
Yeah, well, I think it actually happened 3 years ago, whenever Chris Beard was released from the program and fired after all of the things that the program was going through during that time. And then Rodney Terry stepped in as the interim and had a pretty good run and took Texas to the Elite Eight. And then I think Chris Del Conte kind of had golden handcuffs on at that point. And he was like, I think Sean Miller was one of the top candidates. But before this tournament run, now I feel like, my hands are tied with Rodney Terry and I have to extend him. And as a fan at that point in time, I would have been a little frustrated if he didn't give Rodney Terry that extension and give him a chance after making that Elite Eight run and beating a Xavier team in the Sweet 16 to get to that point. And so, it was kind of one of those things where, the process of hiring the Sean Miller, the name has always been connected to the Texas program since Chris Del Conte has been there. And now that this opportunity has kind of given itself to shed some light on it, it only made sense that he was kind of one of the top candidates. Heard some rumors. Again, I don't think it was very, good, hard rumor, sources, but Bill Self's, name was thrown in there in terms of him and his agent reaching out to the program following Texas's loss to Xavier in the first four this year. He's got a lifetime contract with KU. He's got some health issues. I never really bought too much into that stock. But as soon as Sean Miller's name came up, I said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Do you think I liked Rodney Terry? Being transparent, I got to call a couple of his games. I thought he did a really good job, obviously, the year when he took over. And he can recruit. Do you think it was premature letting him go?
I don't. I was kind of ready for it, to be honest with you. I think the Texas fan base was ready for it. The problem is that there was a step back each year. Got to the Elite Eight, got to the round of 32, got to the first four, and you're in a new conference. And you could just tell that this Texas program felt like they were 2 to 3 steps behind the rest of the conference all year long. Even the games that they really weren't supposed to win, come back win against Texas A&M, beat a good Kentucky team. Had some good quad one wins this year. It was losing to South Carolina. It was losing to Georgia. It was losing to Oklahoma at the end of the season, where you need to be playing your best basketball. And I think on top of that is you've got a talent like Trey Johnson, and you've got a freshman leading the SEC in scoring, and you're at the bottom tier of that conference. And I think it's underperforming. And you saw a pattern of underperformance throughout Rodney Terry's tenure there at Texas. And I think that was kind of more of the telltale sign, not so much this one individual season. I think big picture wise, you saw a steady decrease and a decline, a digression, if you will, of the product on the court. And just watching the games, watched about every game as I possibly could. It just wasn't a good brand of basketball. It wasn't a lot of ball movement. It was one of the worst teams in terms of assist throughout the conference. And field goal.
So a selfish team, pretty much.
What's that?
Like a selfish team. I mean, they weren't.
I think he grabbed players from the portal that were ISO guys. They were all one of the top scorers on their teams coming in from the transfer portal. And then he just said, all right, since you're one of the top scorers on your team, go be the top scorer on this team. And you can't have 5 or 6 top scorers on your team. You can only have one. And that was Trey Johnson. It should have been Trey Johnson. It was Trey Johnson. But then nobody else really knew what their role was. No one, the team never meshed. And that's Rodney Terry's job to do that. And it just didn't get done this year.
Rate your level of excitement for Sean Miller on a scale of 1 to 10.
1 to 10, I'm probably at about a 7. I think it's fair. to be, not all in, all 100% on board with Sean Miller, but I do think that it is a step in the right direction. Something I've always said about the Texas basketball program is they need to be perennial tournament appearance teams. And then a good year, a successful season, in my opinion, would be a Sweet 16 appearance. And so anything further than that, that's kind of what you're looking at. And that's something that Sean Miller has done throughout his entire career, and he's done a really good job of it. He had a 71% winning percentage for his career as a head coach. He's 22-13 in March Madness. I would say he overachieved at Xavier in both stints that he was there. Third highest winning percentage in Xavier history, and led them to two Sweet 16s and an Elite Eight, which is the furthest that program has ever been. And so, same kind of, ordeal that he had at Arizona. And I think as long as he brings a continuation of tournament appearances, a continuation of a win, 2 wins, maybe one of those 5-year stretches, you get to a Final Four or an Elite Eight for this Texas program, that's success. And what I view as success for Texas basketball. Obviously, a national championship is on the top of the minds of this athletic department with Chris Del Conte. He's proven that he's hiring for national championships, whether that be through the softball program, whether that be getting Schlossnagle in as the baseball manager, getting Steve Sarkisian as the head football coach, Vic Schaefer for women's basketball. He's saying, look, mediocrity in terms of just making it to the tournament is not what we want. That's not the expectation. That's not the standard for the University of Texas. National championships and conference championships are the standard at Texas. And he believes that Sean Miller's that guy. And at this point, I've got no reason to doubt what Chris Del Conte has done with this Texas athletic program, because every hire he's made has improved that program since he's taken over.
How far back, you mentioned at the beginning, when the Chris Beard situation happened and Sean Miller's name was being kicked around, obviously it was figured, okay, Rodney will steady the ship here, take us through the rest of the season, and then we'll be able to turn the keys over to somebody who we pick. What was that relationship between Sean Miller and Chris Del Conte that goes back, that put him right in pole position even back then?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure where their relationship kind of began, but I think it was just Sean Miller's impressive, runs with a smaller program like Xavier. And, whenever you get a program on the map and you take them to an Elite Eight and you kind of – now, yes, Xavier's a basketball school, but they will never be a Duke. They're never going to be a North Carolina. They're never going to be these programs. No. And then he gets hired on and takes on a much larger basketball program in Arizona. And I think that was kind of the moment where when you have success at a program like that, with the expectations, with the fan base pressure, similar to what you're going to get with a Texas basketball program, nothing like Texas football by any means, but like a Texas basketball program that can handle that spotlight, handle those expectations from fans and from your donors and from, those who are giving money to the program now, which you can use, by the way. So Sean Miller not going to be getting any trouble in that area.
Yeah.
Like he did at Arizona with
no
DeAndre
phone
Ayton,
calls,
but,
nothing. It's all good.
Yeah. So everything he was in trouble for, completely legal now. So Texas doesn't have to worry about any of those things. But I think that's really what probably caught Chris Del Conte's eye is of this guy has potential. One thing that I noticed between all the coaches that Chris Del Conte has hired is they haven't won a national championship as a head coach before. He wants them to do it first and foremost at the University of Texas and provide them the resources to do that, because he believes that these coaches can do that and have the ability to do that. And I thought it's kind of an interesting, way to look at it. Steve Sarkisian has had great success as a head coach, but he's never won a national championship. Won a national championship at Alabama as an offensive coordinator. Same thing with Schlossnagle. Took Texas A&M to a national championship or a College World Series. Didn't get the job done, but he believes that the resources that Texas can provide these coaches can get them over that hump.
It's interesting. Like I'm from Philadelphia and I've been in Texas for about 8 years, and I've got a chance to go to pretty much all the schools, and there's something different about Texas. There just is. And it's hard to describe, but when you're there, you can feel it. And when you're at the school, you can feel it. And there should never be an issue of, can you get recruits here? Like, will we have the resources? Like, it's all right there. And there's a steady diet of passion from the fan base, but the balance of the support is equally right as powerful. So, I mean, it's got to be an exciting time there. I mean, and we saw what Sark did with the college football playoff. Like, you guys are knocking on the door in all kinds of different scenarios, and it just hasn't always been like that.
Right. And I think that that's something that, again, to go back to the mindset of where this athletic program is as a whole right now is win national championships. It's not just looking to kind of be relevant and put your brand on things and making sure that you're kind of within the mix. No, it's to win the whole damn thing. And in every sport, whether that's softball being, preseason #1 team in the country, or baseball, you're now a top 5 team in the country after beating a #2 LSU team in your first home stance in the SEC. And you've got a whole new coaching staff and a new roster, and you're already improving that drastically with Texas, what Steve Sarkisian's done. And so I believe that this program is going to support Sean Miller and give him the resources that he has never been exposed to in terms of the support around the program. And yes, that means NIL. And yes, that means paying these players and giving them the sponsors that they're looking for, because Texas, believe it or not, I mean, Texas doesn't really look at Texas basketball, or fans of college basketball don't really look at Texas as this NBA factory. Well, it feels as though within the last 10 years, there's probably been about 8 lottery picks coming out of the University of Texas. So Texas attracts these big name guys. Trey Johnson is going to be the latest one. He's going to be a top 5 pick in this year's draft. Sean Miller is going to be able to recruit those types of guys and then develop them and get them to play at a winning level of basketball.
Was there a guy, Tanner, and this is the last question I got for you. Was there a coach who was in the mix, name was kicked around, who you wanted to see hired? And obviously they went with Sean Miller, went in a different direction. Was there somebody that people never talked about?
I don't know if they never talked about him. He was probably the hottest name in the coaching carousel, was Will Wade, coming out of McNeese, and got that big win from Clemson in the tournament, and then obviously ended up signing his contract with NC State. But there was a time where he wasn't signing that contract until after the season was over. Yeah. And Texas fans were kind of like, is it going to be Chris Del Conte working his magic a little bit? That didn't come true, obviously. I think Richard Pitino, who Xavier just hired, would have been an interesting name. I just don't think he was proven enough for what Chris Del Conte wants. And, obviously there was kind of, for me personally, I've been a big Kelvin Sampson fan from Houston, but I don't think you're going to leave a program like Houston that he's kind of developed and has had established. And he's someone on the older side of things. Who knows how long he's going to coach in terms of retiring or anything like that. We joke around on our podcast on All in Horns. Big Rick Pitino fans. Would have loved to see him wearing his all white suit and with the burnt orange, tie or something like that. But that was kind of far fetched to think of. I thought Sean Miller was kind of the perfect middle ground of, you're not going to get a coach who's distracting from what you're trying to do and try to be the headliner. But you're also not going to get an unknown, unproven guy. He's proven that he can get to the Sweet 16. He's proven he can get to the Elite 8, and he can win at the highest level. Yeah,
Sean Miller can coach his ass off. I mean, he's done it everywhere he's been, and you almost feel like he was denied the opportunity to kind of break through with Arizona because of all the smoke and whatnot. And now, like you said, all that stuff's fair game. So Tanner Carlson, man,
absolutely,
host of All in Horns. You just heard the content. You know where to get it. I'd love to have you back, man. It's a lot of fun talking with you.
Oh, absolutely, and happy to be back anytime you want me, man.
All right, Tanner. Thanks a lot, man. Yep. Stay out of trouble. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one.